Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Vicariously podcast. Ladies, gentlemen, today's a good one. Today's guest is a really, really good friend of mine who I have watched grow his business and grow kind of his own brand, so to speak, for the past at least 15 plus years. What makes him unique is that I think his work ethic is far above the average folk. I think that he hasn't burned any bridges, not that everyone else does, but I think he's done a really, really good job of hanging on to good connections and knowing good people. And last of all, I think that he is a very, very transparent, straight shooter. So he may be fun and goofy and lackadaisical, but at the end of the day, he is super polished. He is really buttoned up. He knows his stuff. And like I said, he's a hell of a hard worker. His name is Michael Halow, and he is the founder, owner, etc. of Premia Capital. Premia LLC.com. He has gone out on his own. He started his own business and he has been extremely successful. And his work ethic is through the roof. I touch on it a little bit in this podcast, but I would say out of all of my friends and out of anyone that I've ever encountered that's starting a business from scratch, he has definitely worked probably the hardest that I've seen anyone. So today's podcast, Michael Halow with Premia Capital. Enjoy, and as always, please follow us on our social media sites, and please go to our website, vicariouslypodcast.com. Out.
All right, today's podcast, sitting here with Michael Halow.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I have known Mike for quite some time. We actually lived together, and I'm not going to embarrass him with some stories, but the reason I wanted to bring Mike on today is because he is one of the entrepreneurs that I've kind of seen always do well in his profession, but finally got to a point where felt comfortable enough or felt like he had made it far enough along that he had the contacts to kind of set out on his own. And since then, he has done extremely well with all of his ventures. How many companies do you own as of now?
So we own companies that own properties. And so we've done 12 projects. And so that totals about $400 million of commercial real estate that we own with investors all on the peninsula.
Premia Capital was your baby that you started, 7 years ago, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
And you've spun off to have different divisions or different locations, different what?
Right. So we're primarily an investor in commercial real estate. So for the past 8 years, we've bought office buildings, gutted them, renovated them. So we invest, we put together deals, we raise financing, and then we actually operate the building. So the management, lease negotiations, construction, all of that we do in-house. And so we've grown over time as we've purchased assets and all of that. But that's essentially what we do.
I like that you use we because you obviously have a large team. However, when you first got into this, it was pretty much a one-man operation.
Yes, pretty much it was. It was me. Yeah, it was completely me. So like any ground-up startup, you're going to look to be bigger than you are when you start. So yeah, it was just me actually for the first 5 years. And now we have 6 people and a ton of consultants and architects and engineers and contractors and all of that. But we have 6 people in-house. So, but yeah, it was just me for a long time.
I remember you used to have this big office because I remember when you first went into it, you had this giant office downtown. I can't remember where it was, but I went to it one time. I think we were meeting to play basketball, and I came upstairs. I think it was like an Australian secretary that you had, and I thought it was this giant firm, and like this guy's killing it. He's doing these major deals. And I remember I came to the top and I walked in and it was just this wide open space. And it was one
in San Francisco?
Yeah, it was one desk.
So I got that space. That they charged me no rent for like 4 years. It was one of my buddy's offices. So yeah, that was part of it.
How many square feet was that?
I mean, it was like the size of a deck. I mean, it was like 100 square feet or something like that.
But it was just this one desk. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And we were doing deals out of that office for a long time.
So I think that the bulk of this podcast, I would like to get into.
What's bulk?
Bulk.
Bulk.
Sorry, that's Maryland accent. BULK. The bulk of this, I want to hear about some of the intricacies of the deals and some of the visionary stuff that you've had that's gone into the deals. But obviously, for any listeners out there, I think the key is obviously to share how you got into this world, this career path, number one, and number two, what it took to actually get the guts, balls, whatever, income, capital to launch on your own.
Mm-hmm. So I've been in the business of commercial real estate for 15 years, I'm sorry. And with my first company, towards the end of my tenure there, I was doing my own deals, had my own investors. And in 08, 09, the world was basically imploding. All the banks were failing. And I had always wanted to go out on my own. And so I basically just tried to do everything I could to set myself up with enough cash, with enough knowledge, with enough relationships to go out. And if I was smarter, it would have been scary, but I just figured I could figure everything out. And I faked a lot of stuff for a long time. And then when there was basically a tech wreck down here in 2009, 2010, so we bought our first building for $85 a foot, which is like crazy cheap. That's what we charge in rent now. So,
and that's like Foster City, San Mateo, California area?
That was Redwood Shores. So the building that we're in, that we own, is worth $1,100 a foot. And I mean, prices have prices have run a long way. And I'm comparing two different things, but basically it was a weird time because there was this financial collapse, but at the same time there was the launch of Facebook and Airbnb, mobile, Apple was starting to explode. So you could get real estate really cheap, and then all of a sudden there was this big tech run up that a wave that we've been riding for the last 7 years. And so it took me 15 months to do my first deal after I started my company. And then after that, and within that time, I lost deals. I was kicked off of tours because people didn't think I was credible. Most people rooted for me. Some people made fun of me. I mean, rightfully so. But that first project was really the light switch that went on. And for me, it was like landing my first movie gig or something. And then it was like all these other doors opened up from there.
It's very well said. And we've heard that from several other folks that have sat down on this podcast. But I think one of the things that I want to point out to any listeners about Mike, since I've known him for so long, is that he's the type of guy that won't give himself a ton of credit, and we'll give everyone else the credit, but he's also the guy that when you're sitting around on Saturday getting ready to start drinking or go out to some fun event or go to the Giants game, he had the TV on in his bedroom, and he was cranking out work on Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, etc. Granted, you had your fun and you've gotten out also, but just the sheer work ethic is something that's not going to come through on just a podcast. So,
well, first of all, I'm a subtle brag guy. I'm surprised you haven't picked up on that.
I was trying to give you credit.
Just a subtle brag guy. But yeah, I work super hard.
You work super hard, so you have all these contacts, and I think where I started to go with that was different than some of the other entrepreneurs that we've sat down with is, and even myself personally, is I want to get everything so buttoned up. I want my website to be perfect. I have 35 iterations of my logo, and I just want everything to be so perfect for the initial launch. Whereas you just kind of said, I have enough contacts, I have a great reputation, and I know the industry. I'm just going to go out there and do it. And you didn't get caught up in all the minutia that can slow one down. And so you get into this venture and you go 15 months without a deal. Did you have second guesses or?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I had failures, close calls, silver medals, all those types of things. And it was depressing at times. And, I had a lot of friends with salary and bonus style jobs, and they were all having fun and I wasn't. I think I made like $11,000 my first year,
which was completely different than years past.
Which is not good. Was not good.
And living in San Francisco
was not good. And so it was difficult, and I did fail a lot. And I got discouraged, like where I would take a day off or two. But, you just have to come back one more time, right? And so, and we had in 2010, we had an opportunity to buy like this beautiful brick and timber property in San Francisco for really cheap and very close to doing the deal. Could have had it. Mistakes were made, and we lost it to another much larger group. And I was so it was like getting dumped, but it was the worst for like 4 days. And then I came back to the office, wrote down the top 10 things I did differently. I would do differently next time. And then 3 weeks later, we did our first deal.
Oh, nice.
And I looked at that thing that was like up on my little cubicle wall, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to do that. And it was missing that one deal was best thing that I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing because it opened up this whole new door of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. So when you say we, how does one get investors? And I know that this is completely different than in every different, business venture, but I have talked to a number of people and they said that's one of the harder things to do is to ask somebody, number one, just for money to invest. Mm-hmm. Number two is for them to believe in a company that does not have the case studies or confidence yet.
Right. So it's been, now we have over 100 investors. Some of those are large institutions. Some of those are guys like you and me.
Scratch that, not me.
We have a minimum threshold, but
subtle brag.
Subtle brag. It's just, you see, now that I pointed that out, you're like, I actually don't like this guy that much. The first was the hardest. And I think you got to have a little bit of charisma. And I was lucky because at the time, things were so cheap that it was just a really good time where you could say, like, look, we're going to buy this for super cheap and it cannot fall off the floor. Like, we can only go up from here. So it was just a matter of being persistent and just continuing to put yourself out there and having conviction and having a little bit of charisma and being willing to somewhat, fake it until you make it. And then once you start to get that little bit of success, then you just set those building blocks up and keep going.
So what differentiates you and your pitch versus someone else? Especially, I get it now that you have the track record. You've done some really cool projects, but I remember back in the day, you were looking at all kinds of different stuff. So you're looking at San Francisco, you're looking at anything in the Bay Area, really. But I remember you looked at a ski slope or a ski resort at one point.
Yes.
You have been all over the map. So what separates you and the stuff that you pick versus somebody else?
So, like, what differentiates us from our competition, or what types of projects do we want to buy?
Those are both good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for putting a better question together.
Yeah, I just couldn't make sense of your nonsensical question. So, how we differentiate. So, I've been in the market for a really long time. And so all these, where we are, so we're close to Stanford and Palo Alto and Sand Hill Road. And there's a bunch of different towns and a bunch of different submarkets or neighborhoods, and they all kind of perform and behave differently. So just having that market knowledge and having been through a few cycles is really helpful to investing down here. The other piece of our puzzle is we have so many brokerage relationships, and we have been so good in terms of credibility, trust, honesty, generosity within the brokerage community that people like doing business with us. And when you get that type of credibility, people show you more deals. And so we've tried to build like a partnership mentality with all of our broker relationships here. And that's why we continue to see cool new projects that we can do and make money on.
So when you say cool new projects, what is it that you look for and what do you look to do? I know that some of the stuff that you've touched has been where you renovate it and then flip it. And then other ones have been where you make a couple changes or aesthetics or changing layouts, and then you hang on to them and you rent out the office space.
So just as an overall, there's like 500 million square feet of commercial real estate in the greater Bay Area. So there is a ton of commercial property, and a lot of it's garbage. So a lot of it, you can only compete really on price. So we've tried to buy projects, real estate in really unique locations. So downtown Redwood City, we have 4 projects. The building that we're in, we've done the Starbucks Reserve, where we know that there's gonna be heat when we do our build outs, that we know that we're gonna get competitive action. We've been the benefactor of a rising market for basically the entire duration of my company. But even in a downturn, the neighborhoods that we buy in and the type of product that we buy in, we know we're going to be able to lease. So that is probably the single thread that you could look at across all of our projects. A lot of the stuff we'll buy, we'll gut, we'll renovate, we'll do whatever, and then we'll just refi out our equity and our profits come from there. We have flipped a couple projects. We'll probably continue to do that selectively, so it's just a balancing act for us.
So one of the things that I've also read is you, I think it was March or middle of this past year, 2016, you got into your first build up venture, meaning breaking ground and starting something new.
Nice. You prepare, like you've got full knowledge. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we did.
This guy's a dick.
So we did. Yes. So last year, we fell completely bass backwards into our ground up development, which is a few blocks down the street. It's a 6-story glass and steel building, and we basically bought a building that had a parking lot, a surface parking lot that was excess, and then we went to the city and entitled a 6-story office building that's 76,000 feet. And I had not done that before, but surrounded myself with people way smarter than guys like you and me. I can include you on that. I know I include you on that. And we kind of figured it out. And we were leasing in this market, and we figured out what we could build it for and what we could lease it for. And it was like, oh my God, this makes tons of sense. And then it took a few years to get the entitlements and raise all the capital. That's one of the projects where we have all sorts of investors. But we put it together, we control it, we're building it, it's on budget, and we're in the process of signing leases now. So it's incredible. And so now we have that wherewithal to go out and do again.
Is that one of the biggest keys, is to have those case studies and to say, look at the wide variety of stuff that we've done and done well?
Yeah. So for raising capital, I mean, your track record is
everything.
Huge. And so that's like something we take very seriously. So we're really selective about what we do, and we're as much about trying to avoid any big mistakes as opposed to finding the next home run. So we want all of our deals to be really tight and really profitable, and we look to just minimize risk as much as we can. The bigger you get down here, the more you can do. The more knowledge you have, the more relationships you have, the more money you're making, all of it snowballs on itself. And so things have gotten easier, progressively each year. So it's all kind of building on itself. So hopefully we won't mess that up.
I think you're fine. So one of my questions, is I don't know how it really affects you. So basically, when I lived in San Francisco. This is more for the listeners. You obviously know this, but so I lived in San Francisco from 2003 to the very beginning of 2010. What I see now is a completely different city. It used to be, it had a ton of heritage, and it was a hipster type town, and then there was also very corporate once you got to certain pockets. It just had a ton of different identities to it as you went through the city. Mm-hmm. And I could be wrong, but when I go through the city now, it is just, it's so different. It's so different. And there's people that are going to take offense to this, but it's just nerdy. It's just like a nerdy, geeky, stuck up fucking city. And I still love it. I have a blast, but it is completely different than the identity that I had just 5, 6, 7 years ago. And what that is a product of a lot of these tech companies that are out there. And it's not a bad thing. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable. But most of them, it doesn't seem like there's a solid foundation. And so when you look at somebody like an Uber is a couple laws or rules away from being shut down, and that is a massive, massive company. Airbnb, same thing. You're opening your home. It's your home. You have to take care of it. You have to meet this person that's moving into it. You do everything. It's just a convenience factor of this app that says, yeah, let me connect this person in Milan, Italy to Luke Gilbert in San Diego and let this girl randomly rent my room out, which is happening right now. And so it's this
personal.
Yeah. So it's this convenience factor, but it doesn't have a real secure foundation. And those are obviously these big, massive, massive companies, but there's a ton of smaller companies. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you are developing this office space that all these smaller companies are essentially moving into. Does that scare you that this city, although it is booming, is not built on a really sound foundation?
Yeah, it's interesting. So first of all, I agree. San Francisco is super nerdy now. It's like just all tech nerds.
And you're allowed to say that because you also were born and raised. So your family grew up here. Obviously, further north, your parents lived out in up in towards
Sonoma.
Wine, towards wine country. But you were born and raised in the Marina area, so you have a good 25, 30 some years in that specific area and understanding the city. So you're more credible than my little
but
stint.
You're right. Yeah, it's like my last so we moved down to the peninsula a couple years ago, but like our last year, like if you ever been at a party, it's like 3 a.m. Like our last year in San Francisco was like that. It was just like, who are all these people? Like you guys are crazy. Like, so yeah, there's a lot of tech nerds down there. Uber, I don't know. I think so in terms of like the tech companies, all sorts of tech companies. So big difference between 2017, like where we're at today, and 10 years ago or 17 years ago, the first cycle, is you have Apple, Google, Facebook, Intel, Cisco, Oracle. You have all these tech companies, they're making monstrous amounts of cash. I think if you add up the top 5 Silicon Valley on a net basis, they make close to $200 billion per year. The total revenue for the top 150 Silicon Valley companies is like close to $1 trillion per year. So there is major stakes, major cash flow. If you look in past cycles, it was more of a market value game. IPOs, fundamentals of these companies, the larger ones are incredibly strong. A lot of the smaller companies are interesting. I mean, we have a lot of these small type tenants, more than you think, make money because, like you on this podcast, this is going to be a huge podcast one day, and it's like you can start it right through broadband, through mobile technology, through the proliferation of phones. It's like this thing is going to be hugely profitable shortly. So there's all sorts of companies like that are playing in a much larger game with larger stakes, where they can move their products and services across a global platform. So I don't know. I mean, no one knows. And then there's this whole life science thing down here too, where all these like life science companies are making tons of money. So it's hard to predict. A lot of people stopped buying commercial real estate in 2012 because they thought it had run up too long. Now that was almost 5 years ago now, and it's tripled since then. So
and you're appreciative.
You got to try to be safe. You got to try to be safe, and you try to get security deposits from these tenants and try to pick the right ones. But they're all friggin' smart people. I mean, all these companies are run by smart people, and so you just got to do your best. I think over the long term, the tech sector is far more mature now than it was, and there's going to continue to be things that these people invent. I mean, Uber has made my life way easier. Yeah. I drink and drive like so much less now.
He's kidding. He says that because he has a little one. He is a brand new father.
Right. That's a joke, Luca.
So getting back to look back, so you have all these properties. You have over 100 investors now that are chomping at the bit to be a part of your next venture. Looking back when you first got into it, did you have specific expectations, or did you go down this road saying, I have X amount of dollars in my bank account, I'm really confident in myself, I have no clue where this is going to go, but I just know that I want to do my own thing, I don't want to work for the man anymore?
Yeah, I don't want to work for the man. I like every day, I'm like, I just have to try to avoid making any major blunders so I never have to go back. So I figured, like you, that I would somehow find a way to make it and figure out projects that I could buy and do and make money on. And so I just knew it was a matter of time, and I stuck with it. And just was, I honestly I didn't think of that failing was like an option, like that I would ever go back, so.
I like it. No, that's really good insight. One of the things that a lot of people have said, and this is one of my struggles personally right now, is having assistance. And whether it be a business partner that you two split all decisions, or if it's just bringing on a staff, knowing that, hey, look, this is my brand new venture, this is my baby, I can't guarantee you much down the road because I'm out on a limb. How did you go about that? How did you go about finding a partner, finding people you could trust, hiring your first initial staff, all of that stuff?
Right. So my approach, and everybody's is different, but my approach, I mean, I came from a partnership where you'd have a lot of people sitting in the same meeting, right? So if you got 4 partners, they're splitting profits 4 ways, and they're all sitting in the same meeting. Like, unless 1 + 1 = 3, like, it's really not worth it. And so for me, I was always kind of had my own ideas about how to invest. And although it would have been a lot more comfortable in the early going to show up to meetings with someone else, you just a little bit more fortified, right? And seem more substantial. It was hard to just be, I got like, so your company's just you, like, I got asked that like 100 times, but like for me, like long-term, not having to split everything and have 2 people going on the same tour, I didn't think that we would do twice as much with a partner. And I also just like the idea of not I just kind of run wild here. Like I can make my own decisions, do it really quickly as opposed to like trying to build consensus. So I've stayed away from the partnership thing. Everything that we did in the first few years was outsourced in terms of the services. And then we started to bring stuff in house. And so now we have a little bit of a company, and we have employees, and now it's about trying to build them up. But it's still, the more I could control, the better for me, for my individual style. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't get a partner, man. Don't give this up.
It's kind of hard to split profits.
Yeah. Well, it's easy now.
No, that's well said, because actually we did sit down with Nick Macario, who his company is called remote.com. And remote.com is essentially a website or a forum that brings people from all over the world. So basically you can outsource any and everything. And I think that's a really cool thing, because a lot of companies or needs are shifting to that. Where
that's crazy.
You just
and his website is remote.com. No one took that?
It hasn't launched yet.
Oh.
So. But yeah, it is.
Okay.
He's been working on it for years.
And you're going to partner with him, maybe?
No. I'm not partnering with anyone.
All right.
So before I got here, you were just signing a lease, or you were just in the middle of processing something. And not to be nosy, but I'm sitting here staring at a check for $130,000, $982. That's pretty amazing. I would really like to steal that, but I'm not going to. But so what was the project that you were just securing as I walked in?
Oh, so I think today we're signing a lease on our ground up development. We'll see.
Nice.
So this check I'll write it over to you. It's not real. I just put it so you think I was important.
No, it is real. So what is next for you? So we're sitting here. You have all these properties. You seem a hell of a lot less stressed in general. Not that you always were, but like I said, I've known you for 12 years now, 11 years. And I'd say that you seem a lot more comfortable now than you ever have. Maybe that's because you're recently married and have a newborn also, but
dude, that's funny. Am I stressed? I don't think I'm stressed. Yeah, we're in a better spot now than we've been in the past. That's for sure. And what's next? Man, I don't know. We're trying to continue to build like amazing projects, make a lot of my investors my friends. So kind of doing everything together, making people money, building a lifestyle, just continuing to do that. And so the more we buy and the more we can control, the better. So, and then I'll rethink everything in 5 years and be like, dude, my life is empty.
What is success for you?
I think freedom, so financial success is you want to build enough so you can, one house, one car is enough, right? But you want the financial freedom so that you could work for yourself, do something you enjoy, spend time with your family. And so building towards that goal, that's success. And then success in life is a bigger discussion, but love, friendship, relationships, doing things that you like, I think that's success.
I was on, I'll share some personal stuff here. So
yeah. Here we go.
I was on Mike's bachelor party, and we were in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Don't remember.
And I was in his room, and this is kind of weird.
You were the MVP of that trip, apparently.
So I was in his room, and I remember I pulled back this curtain and found this little door handle, and we had no idea, but there was only a handful of rooms that you could get outside. So we slide this door open. We have this awesome little patio, and it's completely surrounded by every wall of the hotel. It was a really weird little cutout patio that like only your room had. So anyways, we're sitting out there, we're having a couple beers. It's pretty early in the morning. And you said, you know what? I feel like everything clicks now. I feel like everything's come to fruition. And so you started this business venture 7-8 years ago. That's obviously doing well. You meet your now wife All of that's going well. She moved from Nevada to the Bay Area, and then also at the time she was 6-7 months pregnant. And I just had this sense of
on my bachelor party.
Yeah, right.
I think she was like
oh no, she was
2 or 3 months pregnant.
2 or 3 months. Either way, you said
yeah.
I feel like everything is clicking now.
Yeah, I was bragging. Yeah, it's seldomly in life where you have good business success and you matching that up with success in your personal life, where kind of like everything is clicking on those 2 levels. That's a rare thing. So I feel blessed that I have a lot of that, and I'm sure there'll be problems will arise, and try to approach them with courage. And but yeah, I feel lucky.
Well, I think you've done some pretty great projects. I'm really excited to see how the next couple of years go and your next ventures go. And I feel like you are being a little tight-lipped on what you have coming up. But
future projects?
Yeah,
everything's so expensive now that it's been harder to find stuff. But we'll try to build some more stuff.
Well,
do you want to share your project?
No.
That's more exciting than anything I've ever done.
That is funny that you say that. So my project, which any listener is probably going to know somewhat, but I'm sitting here with someone who's built a company from the ground up and is managing millions and millions of dollars, and he's interested in my $7,000 van that's traveling across the country.
That's awesome, dude. That's cooler than anything I've done.
It's all relative, and that's why I asked you the success question, because I think that's all relative, and it's for me, it's just never it hasn't directly correlated to a monetary success. I guess.
Think you live a very rich life, so right?
I do, yeah. All right. On that note, before it changes gears and I'm on the hook, Vicariously podcast, thank you very much for listening. The one and only Mike Halow with Premia Capital, among a whole bunch of other names. Do hop on vicariouslypodcast.com so you can see what Mike looks like. You can see some of the ventures that he's gone down, and we'll revisit him here in the coming months to see what he's working on next.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Out.